Next, we'll talk about common mistakes in proofs. Common mistakes in proof include math errors, errors in assumptions. Those would be times when the things that you're assuming about this particular problem, you're making incorrect assumptions there. And then the most common one, a very common one, maybe not the most, is errors in definitions. All proofs come down to a matter of definitions at the beginning. If we're not all speaking about the exact same definition, then we can't have the same assumptions in a proof. So everything in proof-based mathematics comes down to definitions. You have to get those definitions right. If you have an error in your definition, it can be even a slight error, then you're not going to have the correct basis for everything else that's built in the proofs. So next we'll take a look at some examples. So for this example, we're going to do an erroneous proof, and I'm going to say prove that 1 is equal to 2. To start with, we'll come up with our two assumptions. Let A and B be two equal positive integers. So we'll say A is equal to B as our assumption. Then we'll say, okay, I'm going to multiply both sides by an A. So this will be A squared is equal to A times B. And our reason for this is multiply both sides by A. And once we have this, I'll say, okay, so I'd like to subtract a b squared from both sides. So I have a minus b squared is equal to ab minus b squared. And reason is simply subtraction. We'll say of b squared from both sides, which should be allowed. We should be able to subtract an integer from both sides without having any trouble. Then we're going to say, okay, now I want to factor, so I'll come up with a minus b, a plus b as our factor on the left-hand side, and I have b times a minus b quantity on the right side. Reason being is simply factor. And then let's say, let's decide that we want to divide both sides. And I'm going to divide both sides by a minus b. So I'll have a minus b quantity times a plus b quantity divided by a minus b is equal to b a minus b over a minus b. So we should be able to cancel some of these guys, leaving us with, scroll up a little bit, leaving us with a plus b is equal to b. And the reason for this was divide both sides by a minus b. So now that we have A plus B is equal to B, well, that simply means that we have 2B is equal to B. That was based on our beginning assumption, based on A was equal to B. Therefore, you've got 2B is equal to B. Scroll this back up a little bit, meaning that 1 could be equal to 2. So clearly something must have been a problem in here, but we gave reasons for each one of our steps, and you might think, all right, well, I've proved this. However, in all of the excitement here, we didn't maybe realize that when we divided both sides by A minus B, well, as it turns out, A minus B, let's say A minus B equals 0. So we have a divide by 0 error. And that was our error all along. We have this divide by 0 error, and that was simply because A was equal to B. And you're not allowed to divide by 0. These sorts of little mathematical errors are very easy to make and very common as you get started into things and you lose track of what it actually is that you're representing here. If we lost track of the fact that A was equal to B, it would be easy to make this sort of a divide by 0 error. And these are the types of errors that you'll run into frequently when you start doing proofs and you're not connecting what it is that these variables represent.